Good evening, champions, and welcome to the second installation of the weekend for the Champions Life Academy video series. Looking forward to talking to you today about some interesting subjects. Hopefully you got a few key pointers from the last video. Key thing is today to follow the same format of making lots of notes and crucially committing to a couple of key things that make the most sense to you that you can implement out in the field today and from here onwards. Is this an instant improvement strategy? No, it isn't. It needs to be implemented and you need to be persistent with all the things you commit to on a regular basis, and over a few days and a week you will start to see things happen. So today I'm following on from your viewing of the Derren Brown video. Interesting, hopefully you got lots and lots of things from that, but namely the concept of luck is perhaps now being brought into question. And this is an exciting part of the summer for us because it's the midpoint, and traditionally when we look at results it's where things start to change as an organisation. So got some good news for you. If I were to show you a typical summer, we've got on the y-axis here the performance, along the x-axis it's the number of weeks, and here we have an exponential curve. Now obviously that's not scientific, but if we were to map out the last 6 years results, which Alex or any of the senior managers will be able to do without too much challenge, it will look a little bit like this. So why is it good news for you today? Well, you're at this point roughly in the summer where you put a lot of effort and time in, and results traditionally right now up until now look very much very different to how they were at the end of the program. So that's why it's exciting, because this is the productivity phase. This is the time where things start to get implemented. Now there's a reason for a switch from here to there, and I'm going to share that with you shortly. But I want to talk to you about what you learnt from the video on luck and the concept. How does that apply to Champions Life Academy? Well, firstly, you've all experienced it in the past, and that is the downward spiral, and how things can seem to start to get worse and worse and worse, and how our mind plays a huge impact on whether or not this thing actually exists, and secondly, whether or not something its complete opposite, its antidote is what we call the upward spiral. So today I'm going to share with you a few things that can help you get on that upward spiral and smash down the downward spiral and push that out of existence, because it no longer needs to play a part in your summer if you don't want it to. Now firstly, let's look at the concept of luck. Well, I'm not here to convince you whether or not it exists, but one quote I always stand by, which makes a lot of sense to me, is one that I heard many years ago, and that was by a guy called Jack Nicklaus. Now he is a golfer, for some of you who perhaps never heard of him before, and his quote was, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." So whether or not you believe in luck, that's fine, but I'm here to share with you, every day you go out in the field, you are practicing. So I've got some more good news for you. You cannot get worse at this job. Now some of you shaking your heads going, "Al, trust me, come out with me, you'd have seen this happen." Others of you probably on board going, "Yeah, I recognise that." But for those of you that still question whether or not you can get worse at this job over time, it's impossible. And why do I know that's true? Well, when you go out there, you knock on doors, you practice the approach. When you get into houses, you practice the show. You meet more people, and all of that means you're gaining experience. So I want to recap on the triangle. Now, quite simply, any challenge you have out in the field, it's always going to be based around one of these three elements of the triangle. The physical challenge, to recap, well, the only controllables you need to worry about there are beating your schedule and being quick between doors. That's pretty much it. The mental challenge was a fundraiser. It's about making sure that you take a couple of key lessons from the day, every day. And it's great to hear some of you doing that already. One example is a girl, Andrea. She's in Manisha's team over in Luton. And she, like many people, have recognised that if you believe something is going to happen, it will. And that has put into practice a prime example of expecting to get a show at every single door, and how that has an impact in your day. The moment you start to tell yourself, "It's not going to happen, I can't do it, this won't work," That's exactly what kind of day you're dictating you will have. The quote to follow on from that is by Henry Ford. Now, some of you have heard this, but I know that a lot of you have forgotten about it. And that is simply, whether you think you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. So I want you to write that down and think about that and stick with it, because ultimately it's going to have an impact on whether or not you jump on the upward spiral or whether you jump on the downward spiral. So to recap, I am focusing on the emotional challenge. It's about looking after your attitude. It's about recognizing that luck plays no part in your results.